ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire.
Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and I love modern day technology. Let me tell you, power surges, internet, you name it, but we're here. Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, back with our good friend and colleague, Mr. Scotty Webb, of course, live from Tampa. Week 2 NFL opening numbers, some closing thoughts on last night's tale of two halves, or tale of one big quarter, of course, from the Vikings. I love social media. I mean, this kid, J.J. McCarthy, for 3 quarters was castrated, was never going to make it, heading to the CFL. What a bust. The Patriots should have taken J.J. McCarthy over Drake May. It was kind of comical. Big fourth quarter by the Vikings. Anyone that had an under ticket. Rough morning for you this morning. Both team totals get over there. And at the end, 27-24 Vikings. ECSI VIPs on that right side. We had the Vikings money line there. So hats off there. So first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play. Download the app. It is free. AtlantaSteaksandSeafood.com. Steaks, seafood, chops, appetizers, wines. Terry Smith has it all. Head on over there. AtlantaSteaksandSeafood.com. Without further ado, Mr. Scotty Webb. What's up, Scott?
Hey there. It was, it's weird in the NFL. You know, that Sunday night game was unbelievable. And then last night, it was a boring-ass football game. I mean, the Bears looked like they were the dominant team, and then they lost. So, you know, it's weird how stuff happens, you know. It's almost like Minnesota went out and put in a relief pitcher or something.
That's a good call. Speaking of relief pitchers, thank you. The Garrett Crochet of old, Cy Garrett Crochet, which I still think they'll give it to Scooble. Big win for the Sox here. We'll talk later if we have a second on that. Yeah, it was interesting. I was really impressed with Caleb early. I was like, oh Jesus, Ben Johnson seems to have ignited him. He had that how should I say this? You like to use the word conviction. He was throwing the ball with conviction. Minnesota putting a nice rush on him. He was able to escape and, use his feet. Big third down, toe tap catch by Odunze. Nothing the Bears could do was wrong for 3 quarters. And it looked like once the Bears went up 10, I think it was, that it was going to be lights out. But then all of a sudden, JJ took his, pulled out his Superman, and next thing you know, that was the JJ that Minnesota saw, and it was funny. These 2 hour previews where the teams come out, you're watching them warm up, and then they leave, then they come back, then it's just like, guys, we don't need 2 hours of this nonsense here. They're stretching this, that, the other thing. I know it's a part of the show here, but what I wanted to ask you, or what my eyes saw, either J.J. McCarthy was the most confident kid in the world, or he was shitting his pants, and he had that look like he already had the final exam. I've never seen a kid that's never taken a snap before who wasn't. I'm telling you, I watched him in college at Michigan. He wasn't asked to take over a game. He wasn't asked to throw the ball 45 times. It was a ground and pound, big defense, run with your legs, complete a couple passes, and move on. Were you surprised? Or did you have that feeling that I had, that this kid was super confident just with the look, Scotty?
Well, I thought at the beginning of the game, I thought Troy Aikman made a good point. He kept saying and kept talking about how the game was too fast for him, and he didn't give up though, and I think the other part of that is because he won a national championship, because he beat teams like Ohio State, and he did really well with Michigan and stuff. He's got something to fall back on that allows him to stay in it. And then it clicked. And then once it clicked, it was all over, So I don't know if that follows suit to the next game. I think it probably does. And I think that leads him off to being, hey, we're going to be a pretty good team with a pretty good quarterback. I thought that Minnesota's defense just basically held him in the game. I mean, that's what they did. They held him in the game, and to be honest, I thought that the Bears just didn't put it away. I mean, I think you can say that about a lot of these teams that played in the NFL this weekend. I'm not sure what's going on with the mentality of the coaches and the mentality of the teams. And you've heard everybody say this before, and it's not something that's uncommon, but when you got a team down, you got to step on their throat. I mean, I don't mean that in a grotesque way, but I do mean that in a sense that you can't let them off the mat, because when they get off the mat, they're gonna fight back, and these teams will click, and when they click and they get going, it's they're on a run, and when they're on a run, they're hard to stop. So I just think that there's some weird stuff going on that way, and I thought last night's game was weird. I thought, I watched a lot more of the second half than I did the first half. I mean, I was kind of bored with the first half. So Caleb, that first drive he went down and scored a touchdown, whatever. I thought, okay, great. It makes a difference to have a new head coach, new offense coordinator, and get the most out of your quarterback. But then they didn't score but 3 points on their offense until, mop-up time at the end. So I thought when I watched Caleb in the whole second half, he looked like the old Caleb. Like he's moving his feet all over the place trying to survive. And some of it was self-induced and some of it wasn't. And, he missed wide open receivers for touchdowns. He threw late and missed the guy over his head. I forget who it was, but he looked to the flat and that guy was not there, but they didn't cover the guy going down the field, and he was wide open. And then by the time he threw it, it was over his head, and it was out. It should have been a touchdown. So I thought I didn't think he played that well, but I think my personal opinion is I think you can see the difference between both quarterbacks. I think you can see a sort of goofball in Caleb, a guy that runs around and pretends to be the role. And then you saw a guy really take over and be the guy, right? I thought that was clear as day to me watching the two quarterbacks. I thought that, you watched McCarthy had struggled at the beginning, but he stayed in, and then finally clicked. And then all of a sudden, he's throwing fastballs, and those guys and it's right on him, and they're catching him, and he's going down the line and on the sidelines and talking to his guys and doing all the stuff that's necessary. And you see Caleb over there just kind of looking up, his head's all over the place, and he's doing all these weird things. And I think that you look at McCarthy, and he's kind of an old school good football player. He's got that it thing that makes him great. And you looked at Caleb and you go, he's got all the talent in the world, but he's kind of like a millennial kid that goes out there and his head's all up in the sky and doesn't know what to do. And that's kind of the way I looked at it.
And from a local standpoint, going back to 2 years ago when the draft came, Caleb goes 1 because the Patriots beat the Broncos Christmas Eve. Washington goes 2. They take Jaden Daniels. Well, Drake May falls to them at 3. Minnesota moves up and takes McCarthy at 4. I keep reiterating the fact that Drake May has won 1 game. We've seen now year number 2, game number 1, asked to throw 45 times. The Patriots run the ball exactly 0 times in the second half. And what's the common denominator? Is May going to be Mitch Trubisky? Is May going to take that next step? But the truth of the matter is, it's Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer. Whether it was Kirk Cousins, whether it was Sam Darnold, insert J.J. McCarthy, I think they could have called Fran Tarkenton back there, Scotty, and he would have figured it out.
Well, there's a lot to be said about that. I mean, there really is. I mean, I said this on one of our shows before. If we as guys who are betting on this sport don't start really looking at the guys who are coaching these players, whether it be the head coaches or the offensive or defensive coordinators, wherever there's edges in those fields, those are dramatic. Those are dramatic edges, and I agree with you that I thought that O'Connell put him in positions to win and do the things that were necessary for him to be successful. I don't know that happened on the other side. It was hard to tell. I think that Caleb does a lot of running around unnecessarily. In the NFL, you're not paid to be a running back as a quarterback. And I mean, I get it. Some of those guys have plays called for them, like Lamar Jackson and stuff. But Joe Burrow isn't going to get the ball and do an in sweep. I mean, that's not what happens. So they're paid to throw the football and be accurate and move the ball down the field and make good decisions, put their offenses in good spots. So I don't know that. I know that he did a really good job with that quarterback yesterday. It's interesting, when I was looking at numbers this morning, I wanted to see, like, people looked at that Chicago game yesterday, and I thought, okay, well, based on the first half, they played Detroit this week. So it's going to be in Detroit, and Detroit's off a loss. And now Chicago's off a loss. But I thought, all right, well, at the beginning, I thought, well, people are going to start betting Detroit or betting Chicago because they think they're going to be good. Well, at the end of the game, the way it ended, now people are just jumping on and starting to bet Lions. So I thought that was kind of interesting that there's no faith in Chicago already after game 1. And I get that. Now, I thought Chicago's defense didn't play terrible, but I don't know really how good Minnesota's offense is. And, we talked about that a little bit yesterday. I think Minnesota is a very good defensive football team and maybe a so-so offense until they get it going. I don't think they have a really good running game. I think that what was his name, Mason or whatever, that kid started playing in the second half and changed the game for them because he gained 7 yards a carry or whatever it was, and that opened up the passing lanes pretty easily for the quarterback there. So So I thought the game changed on those kinds of things. And I don't know where the adjustments came. And that's one of the things I think in the NFL anyway, if you make adjustments accordingly, you're going to find the right teams to be looking at. And look at how that game went. The first half was totally dominated by the Chicago, but then there was adjustments made and players changed and the play calling changed, and all of a sudden Minnesota's out there, putting up points and throwing touchdowns and moving the ball right down the field. And Chicago had no answer. So I think that shows the nuance and maybe the chemistry differences of a group that's been together for a little while in Minnesota and a brand new group in Chicago. So maybe Chicago's got a little bit to learn there, and maybe that was a learning experience that they can take into the next game. I don't know. It's not a good thing if you're a Chicago fan. I can tell you that. I mean, you had a team beat at home, dominated, and you let them off the hook. That's not good.
No, and what we're trying to do here on Tuesdays, guys, is grab your pens, your notepads here. While we're talking NFL, I'm going to bring up Scotty's NFL Week 2 worksheet. Again, as we put Week 1 to rest, the San Francisco 49ers, the walking wounded here. Kittle expected out to be 1 to 3 weeks. Juwan Jennings, a question mark. Insert Brock Purdy, toe this. He's now a question mark. Signed Kendrick Bourne, who I had penciled to come back there to a 1-year potential $5 million deal there. Waiting again for some more injury reports here. Thursday night, got a classic here. Washington travels to Green Bay. The look-ahead line was 2.5. The current line at ProfitX yesterday, 3.5. There. The Patriots. I said this to anyone that wanted to listen early. If they beat the Raiders, which they didn't, they'd go to South Beach and lay an egg. The fact that they lost and the way Miami looked, kind of a must-win for both teams here. Correct again, Kansas City's already reached out to Miami, checking in on Tyreek Hill. Patriots blowout. You could see a Tyreek Hill moved sooner than later. Waddle a question mark. Maybe McDaniels already on the hot seat. They just have looked disengaged. They did all preseason. They did opening day in Indianapolis. Now, it'll be interesting to see how they do at their home field there. But just an eye test here. Giants travel to Dallas. Cleveland hosts Baltimore. That'll be a good bounce back spot. You talked about Chicago, Detroit. Look ahead, 4.5 now, 5.5. Seattle, Pittsburgh. Kind of interested. Look ahead, 2.5 now, 3 there. As Pittsburgh, late win in New York. Seattle kind of pooped themselves against San Francisco. I think that was mostly coaching. That's just my take. We're seeing 6.5 San Fran, New Orleans. Carolina, Arizona, 6.5 there, which is surprising there. Arizona holds on to win in New Orleans. Now face a Carolina team. And I want to stop here for a second because Carolina, we saw the old Bryce Young. We saw an hour weather delay. And Bryce Young started cooking when Thielen came back. And now they trade Thielen because they had Jalen Coker. Well, Coker, as soon as they made the trade, is out 4 to 6 weeks. So there again, Bryce Young didn't have that slot receiver, and Jacksonville just went box to wire there. Denver, Indianapolis, who would have thought this? Denver only 2.5. Can Indy play back-to-back stellar games? Denver, I was not impressed. I think they were playing with their food there. The game of the week, Philly at Kansas City. Look ahead line was KC minus 1.5. Now Philly minus 1.5. When would you ever see Kansas City home dogs there? Atlanta at Minnesota. Minnesota a flat 5. The Monday Night Blues short week. NFL just gives Minnesota an extra couple hours with the 8:30 game. Two games on Monday. Tampa travels to Houston. Tampa 2.5. Looking again poor offense, good defense they face with the Rams. In comes Tampa, and then the late game Chargers at Vegas. Look ahead line 3 now 3.5. Chargers with a couple extra days off. Had to travel back from Brazil there. Vegas comes back 1-0. The stage is yours, sir.
Well, I thought one of the things I saw this morning that was very interesting. I guess Brian Daboll went to the management and the ownership and had a meeting and said he wants Jackson Dart to be the starting quarterback. And if that's the case, I don't know what that's going to look like against the Cowboys in this game. So I thought that was relatively interesting. And then I also thought that that's a serious implication and indication of Russ Wilson, right? I mean, so if your head coach isn't necessarily bought in and likes your backup quarterback better than starting quarterback, and is trying to get permission to use Jackson Dart, what kind of offense are you going to run? So I think that's something to watch, because so in my mind, I'm sitting there going, well, what if Russell Wilson starts and they say, no, well, let's wait one more week? What's Russell Wilson going to do? I mean, what kind of offense are you going to put together out there with a guy that's, not going to be around? So I don't know what that's going to look like for them. Dallas played super good against Philadelphia that game, and I was really more surprised at how in the second half, after all that rain and stuff, that the game basically they didn't score any points either team. I mean, after both of them went up and down the field that day, I was surprised that. And again, when you start to talk about it, we just talked about adjustments, and there you go. That's another perfect example of adjustments being made. Maybe that means Dallas does have some people that can coach those players. And maybe we need to give that new head coach a little bit of respect. I didn't give him any respect coming in. I didn't think anybody wanted to be an offensive coordinator, let alone a head coach. So, it's interesting to me how some of that stuff plays out. I thought a couple of things when I looked at some of these numbers. I think one of them is, the Cincinnati game against Jacksonville. The look-ahead number was Cincinnati -6. They don't like what they saw from Cincinnati, when they played Cleveland. The number's down to 4. And I think, if you kind of look at things in a different way, it might be, if it's 4, the home field advantage is like 1.5, 2 points in the NFL, right? So let's just say it's 2, just to be doing some simple things. That means on a neutral field, Cincinnati's 2 points better than Jacksonville. I don't believe that. I think Cincinnati's a borderline, if not playoff team. I think Jacksonville's probably close to a playoff team if they can handle Houston or do something in that division, right? I mean, that's kind of a easier division that they play in. But I don't think that they're nearly as good as Cincinnati is. So I think that the look-ahead number of -6 is more accurate than where it is today. So my opinion is I think you're going to see a little bit of bounce back from Cincinnati, especially at home. They're not playing the Browns this week. I think that's probably a reasonable spot to look. I don't know if it gets to below 4, maybe it gets to 3.5. You can wait. You don't have to get on it right away. But that's one I'm looking at. And another one, and it might be starting to get a little bit away. The look-ahead number in that Detroit-Chicago game was 4.5. It's up to 5.5 now. I think Detroit's going to smash this team. I mean, I don't know that Detroit was good, but you got to remember what Detroit does at home versus what they do on the road. When they play in that dome, and they got the speed element, and they got the crowd noise, and they got all the other stuff that goes for them. I think that's going to be an element that Chicago and a new head coach and a new coaching staff just has trouble with. So I kind of like the Detroit side there. And in terms of trying to find some other things in here, I think they're just going to wait and kind of play it out. Arizona last week played and their quarterback was sick. So I don't know if that really affected the game outcome or not. I mean, they won the game. They played relatively dominant football. If I look at where he ranked, Cardinals quarterback, where is it? There he is. He was in the middle of the pack. He was 16th of quarterbacks last week. I thought, Joe Burrow. This is another reason I like the Bengals this week. Joe Burrow is 25th ranked quarterback in the NFL for week 1. Joe Burrow is not the 25th worst quarterback in the football in football. So, so I think he's going to go and have a pretty good game. I think you're going to see that from him. Russell Wilson, I just talked about him for a minute. He's ranked 32. So I mean, maybe Dabo's got a good point there. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think some of the things you got to look for are what was real and what wasn't. Like Justin Fields ranks 5th. Is he really the 5th best quarterback in the NFL? I think he's more, towards the 20th best quarterback in the NFL. So, when you're looking at Jets, maybe the Jets aren't going to do as well this time around. Same thing applies to like Daniel Jones. He ranked 9th. Last week. So is he going to still be in a top 10? Probably not, especially when you consider that you have guys like Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes below him in ranking from what they did in the first game. So I think you're going to see some things move around and how that kind of plays out, what it looks like. I'm interested to kind of start looking at this from a perspective of what these quarterbacks are facing based on how good the pass defenses are after about 3 games or so. It's kind of hard to tell after one game. I mean, who knows? Some of these teams just maybe had their best game. They grade these games, and Phil Steele does this. He has a game grade on how they work. It's kind of like in baseball pitchers game score. Yeah, it's kind of like that. And you can kind of see whether they had a great game or if they kind of played an average game or whatever based on their abilities and so forth. So I'm kind of waiting to see a little bit more on those kinds of things. It's early in the season. I don't think it's crazy to get out in front of certain things, but like the Detroit game. If you like Detroit, I think that's going to get to 6. I think it will. So I think you got to be careful there and determine when you want to bet. And that's something, Jeff, maybe you and I can talk about too a little bit. When you bet is just as important of what you bet, So that's the purpose of this show to a certain degree. Lines move. And being ready to attack a number when you see the number you want, you got to be ready. So what number do you want? If you're that game, and the number was 4.5, and now it's 5.5. The truth of the matter is they're the same number. The key number is 6 and 4. So if it's between 4.5 and 5.5, it's the same number. So it doesn't matter. But if it gets to 6, that's a different number. You know what I mean? Like if you've got to cover 6 and 7 are key numbers. 4 is a key number. 5 is a dead number. So I think you got to determine what it is you want to do, and now's that time, right? I mean, I know that you because the number's going to move again. It's probably based on betting trend of right now anyway. It looks like it's going to keep going up, and I would and like what you said last week. People bet favorites early, and if you're going to sit there and bet dogs, wait till people bet the favorites and then bet the dogs before the kickoff, and you're going to get the best number on the dogs you can. So, if you want to bet it that way, and you want to bet a favorite, you got to start looking at those favorites early. That's why I was thinking about that game, I was thinking about, that Cincinnati game is 4. Key number's 4. Key number's 3. So, I don't, if it gets to 4.5, then you missed, right? You can't bet it at 4.5 if you could have had it at 4. So I think you want to bet it if it gets to 3.5, then you have a good spot. But when you're looking at this stuff, and why we're trying to do this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that kind of thing, is to show what values and lines do move and where the value is. So, I think Cincinnati at -4 is a good number. I think it's a bettable number at that spot. And I think that this number with Detroit at 5.5 is a good number.
And it's funny, I won't say his name. You saw his videos, you saw his notebook, hint, hint, yesterday, kind of comical in the fact that you're staring at a team yesterday. I'll just say the Jets, +7.5 on DraftKings. And you're staring at it and staring at it. And then DraftKings, everyone else was a flat 7. DraftKings goes to 7, and then you decide to bet it. So if you liked the Jets yesterday and you opened up your DraftKings account and you saw it at 7.5 and didn't bet it, and then it dropped to 7 and did bet it, shame on you. Again, go to the window with conviction. If you see a number and you want to get ahead of the market, now listen, if you're a $100 bettor and this is new to you, you don't have to put the full unit on it. You can see a number that you like, you want to get ahead of the market, maybe put a half a unit on it, maybe put a quarter unit on it. Or if you want to go to the window with conviction because you say, hey, I want to get ahead of the market, then put the full unit on it, document it, and then follow the market there. Lastly, before we jump over to college, Scotty, if my numbers, if I'm thinking this correctly, Friday night, Kansas City and the Chargers from Brazil tips and just sneaks over. Jets, Pittsburgh flies over. Then you had to wait till the Ravens Bills. That goes over. And then, of course, last night, for 3 quarters, they played grab ass. And then that fourth quarter explosion, that game goes over. If my numbers are correct, 12-4 to the unders, week number 1. NFL has everyone set up perfect because we know everyone bets the favorites and the overs. Do you expect, I'm not saying the overs go 12-4, but are the numbers baked in early enough where over bettors can sit there and cherry pick? Or again, if you're an over better, you got to get in early. If you're an under better, let the public fire away because those numbers are only going to go up.
Yeah, no question. I would say that the NFL week 1 of this year showed us that the defenses are ahead of the offenses. I think that's all preseason related and how they do stuff in preseason football these days. Trying not to get people hurt and trying not to do so much, and all of that kind of thing. I just think it's playing safe, doing different things. But it's just like we watched Buffalo and we watched Baltimore, right? And they're 41-40. Nobody, when the offenses wanted to go throw the football and do the stuff that offenses do, nobody could stop them. And it didn't matter how good the defenses were because those are 2 really good defenses in the NFL. I mean, they are. So I think that, when you start to think about what teams can do and what they look like, one of the things that I look at is, yes, I think offenses will start picking up a little bit more. So, for example, Philadelphia looked pretty good against Dallas, and then they didn't score in the whole second half. I don't think that's going to be something that is a continuing trend. I think that maybe Philadelphia is going to start scoring and scoring and scoring. And Kansas City didn't look like they were very good on offense. And I think Philadelphia's defense is pretty strong. So, I'm looking at the Philadelphia side in that game. I don't know how I want to look at the number. It's 1.5. I don't know that matters. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Key number is 3. So Um, it's still under 3, but it opened at Kansas City -1.5, and now it's flipped. But I tend to agree with that flip. So you know, now you sit there and go, "Was Mahomes going to have another bad game?" Is Mahomes, and he didn't have a terrible game, but his quarterback ranking was Chiefs. Where is he? He's 13th out of all this, so pretty good. So I think that as you start to look at some of this stuff, and you got to bet on good quarterbacks, you got to bet on good offenses, and the way it works in the NFL these days is you pass the ball to score points, you run the ball when you're ahead to salt the game away. That's what you do. And they have the perfect setup for all of that stuff. They really do. So anyway, I think you're right. I think my opinion would be is that offenses are going to play a little bit better this week. They got some tape though, so we'll see what they can do with that and how good some of these offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators will work. I think some of that's going to be important. But there's not a lot of major games. I mean, there's a couple games that are good. I mean, Kansas City, Philadelphia is pretty good. But you don't have Buffalo and Baltimore again. You don't have that game. So I think we'll see how it plays out as to what these teams do and whether the numbers, the lines are right. And I always revert back to some of the things you say about, look, the opening number is there for a reason. And you got to understand what it is. And once it starts moving off of that number, there better be some solid reasoning to whether you support it or don't support it. So be careful about those things.
And all along, again, I had egg on my face on a handful of games. Week 1, I was spot on a handful. Week 2, again, that Minnesota opened up at 1.5, 2-point favorites early for a reason. Here was a divisional game, a rookie quarterback versus Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and the monsters of the Midway. Again, for the first 3 quarters, I looked like I had egg on my face, but I kept trying to explain to people Minnesota opened up as a 1.5, 2-point favorite as for a reason. So again, guys, the moral of this mini sermon, always trust and respect the opening number. It's there for a reason. What the public and the DGens do for the next week or like the first week, week number 1, the last 3 months, now we're on that even playing field. These numbers were go ahead.
I was just going to say, so let me just say this real quick as we're talking about numbers. I see all the time people, and probably on X or Twitter, whatever, or even in a sports book when you're having a conversation with somebody. All they want to do is talk about the sports book, and the sports book's your enemy, and the sports book is who you're trying to beat. Well, if that's the way you think, that's not how it works. It's not. The sports book is the opportunity to take the action. I mean, they're the ones who are going to take the bet, right? So they're going to take the action. The market is set by everybody who bets. So you're actually trying to beat your friend and neighbors that are betting into this game too. You're trying to be smarter than them. The sports book's just moving the numbers around based off of 2 things. One, the volume and tickets and stuff. And then second, they want to make a little bit of money too. So they're going to set it up so that maybe there's a spot where they can clean house on a game. So the reality becomes is you're not really betting against the sports book. You're betting against other people and other players. And once you understand, I think, I guess the best way to say it is you can be a guy like me and be a stats nerd and do all these different numbers and do all this stuff and be a super fan of a team and all of that stuff. That gives you no edge. It doesn't. None of that is important, because the most important part of all of it is to understand that this is a market. It's a betting market. So what you're trying to do is beat the number that has been created by the market, right? It's opened at a certain number, and then the betting public goes in and moves it around. The betting pros move it around, and the reactions to all of that. You have to be able to sit there and go, well, I believe in the market moving is correct. I believe in the market moving is incorrect. And once you bet the number, you're betting against or on the market. And I think that's the most important thing, because the truth of the matter is I have these numbers, Jeff, and one of the numbers I like, and we're going to talk about them in college football in a minute. And I think that it's very helpful to trying to figure out how good football teams are and how and whether or not they're going to do certain things. But some of that, all that stuff, sort of baked in. But the truth is, a number is set, the people bet, the pros bet, and then you have to decide, did the market move appropriately or inappropriately? And where can I pick off the bad number? And that's what you're looking at. So if you're a sports bettor and you don't know if it's a bad number or a good number, you're never going to win. You're never going to win. You're going to win a few, lose a few, win a few, lose a few, and that's what you're going to do all the time. You're always going to be a middling bettor, and it takes a long time to try to figure that out. And I used to do that a million times. When I first got into this, the first thing I did was look at how many positive trends I could find on a team versus how many negative trends I could find on a team, and I'd be betting trends all the time. That's what I would do. I would just bet the more positive trends on one team and negative trends on the other. And you're going to win some and lose some, and win some and lose some. And then I started going, oh, well, that's not right. Let me start getting into the data and yards per play and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is very helpful, but that's not it, because people are betting that already, changing the market number to reflect that stuff built into that number. So the question becomes is, what should the number be? And at some point you got to come up with either your own numbers, or you're going to have to figure out what numbers to follow as best you can. You can see my spreadsheets have lots of different numbers from different places. And the reality basically is trying to find the value spots, right? I mean, Bill Conley in the college football does the SP plus numbers for ESPN, and I get Kenny White's numbers, and in the NFL I use Kenny White's numbers, and I use Fezzik's numbers. So I think that when you're looking at them, and then you go and say, okay, well, these numbers reflect something different than what the number should be. That's when you go bet them. You go and say, hey, I think that there's a good opportunity here, and you kind of go from there. Anyway, food for thought about what you're really trying to do and what makes sense, because you can sit here and have all the trends you want, all the data points you want, all the stuff that you want to have, and the number's set to be the way it is. The only thing that changes for me is baseball, because baseball is a win-loss sport. And you have a money line on wins and losses, and I think that data does help with that, because I think you get a lot of old school guys that don't really follow baseball the way they should anymore. Anyway, food for thought.
College splits are up. Again, not a lot of headliners. There's a few. Thursday night, NC State, Wake Forest. Friday, Deion Sanders travels to Houston. K-State, Arizona. Money coming in on Arizona. Again, Kansas State opened up in Ireland. Have not looked good ever since there. So money coming in on Arizona. New Mexico, UCLA. I liked UCLA at UNLV in a great bounce back spot. Again, UNLV boxed the wire. Here comes a New Mexico team that can't stop a nosebleed. A 15, now 16 and a half. They're pounding on UCLA. If UCLA doesn't put up 40 this week, there ought to be an investigation. They could bring Troy Aikman back and off the streets if they had to there. Saturday, looking for some bigger games. Clemson, Georgia Tech. Money coming in on the dog Tech, now 3.5 at Profit X. Wisconsin travels to Alabama. Which Alabama team will we see? The one that was not engaged against Florida State or the one that was against UNL Monroe? Also, Alabama haters after week 1. Take a look what Florida State has done the first 2 weeks. So maybe Florida State is just that good there. Georgia gets to finally travels to a red-hot offensive Tennessee. Money coming in on the dog there. Tennessee now 3.5. Georgia favorite at Tennessee. Pittsburgh, West Virginia, we know a rivalry there. USC travels to Purdue, number 1 ranked quarterback there with USC. 21-point favorites there. Let me see here. UTEP, Texas, Iowa State, Arkansas, South Florida, Miami. And you talk about the total disrespect card. Here's a South Florida team that opened up 9-point dogs, closed 6 against Boise State, boxed the wired them, then goes in 17-point, 18-point dogs to Florida and takes care of business there. Now has to travel to Miami, who some think is a top 5 team this year. Carson Beck just stepping in and looking great. Their defense looks great. 17.5-point favorites there. So if you had South Florida opening week against Boise, if you had them against Florida, there's no reason not to sprinkle something on them right now. Catching 17.5. At Miami there. What else do we? Arkansas at Mississippi. Mississippi 8.5 with a 62.5. A lot of points going to be scored there. We had Ole Miss first half team total there. I expect them to score a ton of points at home there. Florida bounce back spot at LSU. Opened at 9.5, now 9. People are buying the bounce back spot there. Texas A&M, Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Revenge game for A&M. They lost opening game last year at home. Open at 6.5, now a flat 7. Notre Dame is favored. BC, I feel for BC here. 66 points they scored in their home opener against Boredom. Travel to Michigan State on a Saturday night, 8 o'clock game. Losing double overtime, 42-40 on a 2-point conversion by Michigan State. Now have to travel to Andrew Luck's Stanford Cardinal. I do know Andrew Luck won't be quarterbacking. John Elway won't be quarterbacking there. BC opened up 10.5, now 11.5. And if you haven't seen this BC quarterback, guys, he's legit. I'm not calling him the next coming, but I'm just saying from BC standards, the kid has been great the first 2 weeks there. What pops out in your eyes, Scotty?
Well, I don't understand what's going on and what I see from a lot of things in the NC State Wake Forest game. So NC State's played 2 good teams and played respectably. And if I pull this game up, hold on, let me go back to that for 1 second. NC State and pull this game up, dual logs. There we go. So NC State played Virginia. Virginia is kind of like the 50th ranked school. They beat them 35-31, and they beat East Carolina 24-17. So kind of close games, but they beat both of them. Wake Forest played Kennesaw State, the 127th ranked team out of 134 teams, scored 10 points, beat them 10-9, and then played an FCS school and beat them 42-10. So now this game is NC State -7 on the road, but I don't get it. So what I mean by that is everything that I've seen, everything I've listened to, everything I've tried to figure out about how these teams match up and what to look at. Everybody wants to bet Wake Forest in this spot. And I sit there and I look at it and I go, well, Wake Forest, they just suck. And it's not like NC State's got a big game next week. They play Duke. I mean, I know that's a rival game, but Wake Forest is in the same state. So I mean, it's like, I don't understand this game yet. So I'm trying to figure that one out. because in my mind, the NC State quarterback, that kid's pretty good. I forget what his name is, but I can get it real quick. Records, results. Where are they? Here we go. Let's go to passing. That kid, his name is CJ Bailey. CJ Bailey's got a 70% pass completion percentage number right now. He's got 518 yards passing, 154 QBR, and he's like top 20, and he's 12th in all of college football. And Wake Forest quarterback's 99th. So I sit there and I think this should not be a 7-point game. But then when Kenny put out his numbers, he's got Wake Forest minus a half a point. So that's an automatic play theoretically on Wake Forest. You got to, and he's got the score 28-27. And then Bill Connolly comes out and goes, it's 28-27 for NC State. So they're saying Wake Forest. So everything I'm seeing says Wake Forest, but data, numbers, everything else, I sit there and go, I don't get it. Do you see something in this game that I'm missing?
Well, I'll tell you this, Scotty. When the dust settles and I pull up the next week games and I do my numbers, and then usually I'm a half point, a point, either which way or spot on. When I am way off, I try to figure it out like you're trying to do right now. And when you got two experts basically saying the same thing, it's a head scratcher. And usually I'll say 8 out of 10. When I'm way off and the experts are somewhere else, they're usually more right than I am. So
no, I get it. I just don't. I don't understand. Like one of my data points that I use a lot, and I'm giving away some information here, but one of them is. In college football, a lot of people like to use yards per play and all that kind of stuff. I don't do that because that's just, that's a decent number. I mean, that tells you how good they are at moving the football. For every play they get, they're going to gain X number of yards, right? I like to do it in terms of yards per point, but yards per point margin, meaning that, okay, the offense gets you this and then the defense gets you this. So this is your winning margin or your losing margin. So what that means to me is they score X number of points and it takes them this many yards to get it. And that's more important than yards per play because we're betting on points. We're betting on scores. So in this matchup, for example, where is NC State? NC State ranks 37th in yards per point margin, and Wake Forest, they are. Where'd they go? Wake Forest, where did you go? I just had you a minute ago. This works better if I have it all right there in front of me, doesn't it? They are right there. They are 67th. So it kind of matches up to me where you sit there and you go, what I'm looking at does make sense that NC State scores more points based on yards that they get, and Wake Forest struggles to score points. And you just saw it. They played Kennesaw State, the only team they've played. They only scored 10 points. So I sit there and wonder. I just wonder about that matchup. So anyway, that was just going through my mind. I haven't played the game. I haven't figured out what to do in the game. I'm probably going to pass the game because when I get messed up this way, I have an opinion. My opinion is NC State's the right side. And nothing that I'm seeing, nothing that I'm hearing, the guys that I'm using for data says that it shouldn't be that way. So I kind of probably skipped that. Another spot that I thought was good, and this is going to come in to play this Arizona game, and I don't know exactly how to do this, so we'll see. Kenny's got the original number is -1. Kenny's got the line Kansas State -3.5, and Bill Connolly's got the game 29-26 for Kansas State. So they both like them to win by at least 3. The line opened Kansas State -1, went to pick on Monday, and now it's Arizona -1. So now Arizona is the favorite, and all the numbers say Kansas State should win this game. And when I started to look at it, Arizona's quarterback's been very good. They're 29th. But what was really, really shocking to me, and I don't know how many people know about what Arizona's done yet, Arizona is the number 3 team in college football in points per yard margin. So they're number 3. They're right behind Oregon and BYU, and then Penn State, Ohio State, Maryland, and Wisconsin in those teams. So they're right there with the best of all the teams. So then if you go and you say, well, what have they done? Arizona, here we go. We pull this up and go to there we go. So Arizona played Hawaii in game 1, and Hawaii was ranked 102 out of 130 schools, and they beat them 40-6 at home. And then they played Weber State, Weber State, and they beat them though 48-3. That's why Arizona is getting all this love. And then Kansas State lost last week to Army, who was 82nd ranked. They lost to Iowa State, and the only game they won was against an FBS school, North Dakota, even though they're pretty good. They beat them only 38-35. So Arizona's getting all this love. And what I thought is if you look at the players, there they are, rosters and stats. Passing. What's cool is Arizona has a quarterback. There he is. Arizona has a quarterback, Noah Fita, who's been really good. 35 of 45, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions in these games. Well, now he's going to play a real defense, so to speak, for the first time. And we've seen what Kansas State is, a methodical, bludgeoning-like type team. And this game is in Arizona. So I get why there's people that like Arizona. Arizona's number is super good when it comes to points per play. That means what it means is they don't need to score. They don't need to gain as many yards to get all the points. They get big plays, they get scores, they get the stuff. And Kansas State doesn't. So I like the advantage there. And, I'm not so sure I don't like that flip from that. But again, that's going to set up that, well, what are you doing getting these numbers if you're not going to follow the number, Scott? Because Kenny says that the number should be 3.5 to Kansas State, and Bill Connolly says 3. And I go, well, I don't know. I don't know what it means. I think Kansas State, is struggling. I think Arizona is not a great football team, but I think they can beat Arizona State or they can beat Kansas State. So I haven't pulled the trigger, but that's one I'm thinking about. As I came down, I think one game I will pull the trigger on is I like Memphis against Troy. I know Troy played really good against Clemson, but I think that's more about Clemson than it is about Troy. Memphis, I think, is a pretty good football team. That number, Kenny opened at 6. Kenny's got it at 3. Bill Connolly's got him winning by 12, so that's a big disparity between the two. The Profit X number opened at 6, went to 5, it's down to 4.5. Memphis, by the way, on that chart that I was talking about, they rank 14th in terms of points per yard differential, and then they're playing Troy, and Troy's way down. They're 105 out of 130 schools. So I think that's a big disparity, and I think that's good for Memphis. I like Memphis in that spot. I'm probably going to bet it. I was waiting to see if maybe it would get to 4 before I pulled the trigger. There's a couple other spots. I don't know that I'm buying all this Tennessee hype. The game is opened at 6. And if you respect that number, Georgia -6. Now on Monday went to 4.5, and it's already 3.5. Everybody and their brother wants to bet on Tennessee, and Georgia hasn't played anybody. Well, Tennessee's played zero. Tennessee, if I go back here and look and pull this game up, you'll be shocked at who Tennessee has played. Let me go back to where I can get this game. Tennessee's game. Boom, boom, boom. There's Clemson, Georgia Tech. Where's Tennessee? Georgia, Tennessee, where are you? There it is. So Georgia, Tennessee in this game. Tennessee has played Syracuse, which ranked 60 at the time, beat them 45-26. But that was a close game at halftime. It wasn't like it wasn't. They blew them out in the second half. And then they played a team called East Tennessee State. I never heard of them. But they beat them 72-17. Well, Georgia, they played Marshall and Austin Peay. And the reason that I think people don't like Georgia is because Georgia was 28-6 against Austin Peay. But I don't think people really realize what happened in that Austin Peay game. That was a rain-delayed, stopped game. And B, I don't think they completed the game. I think the game ended sometime in the third or fourth quarter, and it was just that's the way it ended. It was 28-7, so that 28-6. And then when I started looking at numbers in this game, in terms of quarterbacks and stuff, go to here, go to passing. The Georgia quarterback is 40 of 58, 417 yards. He's only got 2 touchdowns and zero interceptions, but he does run the ball a lot. He's actually one of their leading rushers on that team so far, Gunnar Stockton. And then the quarterback for Tennessee, he's been good. People want to talk about how great he is, but Joey Aguilar, he's got 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 170 QBR, but he's been more average than anything, and more average against these schools is going to be way different than playing the Georgia defense. So my opinion in this spot is I think I'm way more looking at taking Georgia than I am taking Tennessee. And if I can get that number to 3 instead of 3.5, I think that's what I'm going to do. But I'm waiting to see if it gets there, because if it started at 6, went to 4.5, went to 3.5, maybe it gets to 3. I think I like that side. I thought the number in Pittsburgh starting to get out of hand. West Virginia got beat by Ohio. Pittsburgh's been beaten up on the Sisters of the Poor. Now they play a bigger school, a rivalry game. That game opened at 4, went to 4.5. It's already up to 6.5. I think that, if you're going to bet it, you need to bet it now before it gets to 7. I'm looking at it, but I think that the numbers have already gotten away. So I'm probably going to pass that game, but I've got it to kind of look at. Another interesting spot, I thought North Texas has been really good as far as I'm concerned. They've been scoring points, been beating teams. They beat UTSA. They play Washington State this week. I don't think people are giving Washington State a lot of credit here. The line opened -5. Kenny has it -2.5, and Bill Connolly has it 3. So with North Texas being the favorite. So I think Washington State can handle staying in this game, and I think that they can play here. So I'm kind of looking at the Washington State side in that one. Iowa State, Arkansas State. Iowa State's been really good. They play a weird game where they have 2 tight ends. They don't really have good wide receivers. But Arkansas State's been really bad. And I know this number is 21. Kenny's got it 24, and Bill Connolly's got it 22. I think that they just beat this team up. I think Arkansas State is not going to be around much in this game. They're 39-17 kind of number. This looks good to me in that spot. Another one, Appalachian State. they're the better team against Southern Mississippi, but these are two smaller schools, and I don't know if I'm going to get involved in it. I just think Appalachian State's probably the right side, and I really like Arkansas against Mississippi. The number opened at what, 8.5, I think, right? The number was 8.5. It's still 8.5. Kenny's got it at 8, and Bill Connolly's got it at 11 for Mississippi. But let me share this about the Arkansas quarterback. The Arkansas quarterback, he ranks number 3 in all of college football with the QBR. Arkansas, let's go back here to pull up his numbers for a second. Arkansas, go down here and find them. Down, there we go. Arkansas, Mississippi. If I go ratings, roster, stats, passing, and I can get them real quick. All right, so Taylon Green is his name. He's 41 of 57 for 71%, 72%, 71.9% completion percentage, 561 yards. Jeff, he's got 10 touchdown passes already. 10. He's 10 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. That's a pretty big time number. And the quarterback for Mississippi, Austin Simmons, he's got a 60% passing grade, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Not been the greatest quarterback in the world. They've been a running football team. They've been giving it to, what's that kid's name, Tate or something like that. I can tell you, rushing. His name is Lacey. They've been giving the ball to Kewan Lacey. And that's how they've been moving the football. And the other side of Arkansas is, I just talked about the quarterback as being a passing quarterback, 10 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Jeff, he's their leading rusher. He's run for 192 yards running the ball. He averages 10.7 yards per carry. I think this is an Arkansas team that can compete and can score and stay with Mississippi. I think this is one of the better bets of the night, to be honest. I think they stay within that number. I'm trying to figure out what to do with South Carolina and Vanderbilt. I think people like Vanderbilt because of Paiula, or whatever his name is, that's the quarterback for Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt won a game last week, and he played well, brought him back, did a lot of scoring. Kenny's got the game at 8.5 for South Carolina. And Bill Connolly's got it 9, and it's 5.5. So I think you can look at that and say, well, maybe Vanderbilt's going to play a real defense here. South Carolina doesn't impress me a whole lot, but at the same time, they're not a terrible football team, and they got a good quarterback too. He just hasn't played that well yet. His QBR is 82. Texas A&M, Notre Dame. There's been money coming in on the Notre Dame side a little bit. Went from 6.5 to 7, which I understand. Kenny's got the game at 10 points, 30-20 for Notre Dame. And Bill Connolly's got a 28-25 Notre Dame. So the Texas A&M side. The Texas A&M quarterback's been way better than the Notre Dame quarterback. So it's a matter of can they contain the running attack of what Notre Dame can do. And I think they're going to play well. I think they're going to play fine. And if you're going to give me 7 points, I think I'll take the 7. So I'm kind of waiting to see if that gets to 7.5 there. And I think Navy against Tulsa. Look, Tulsa at maybe 5 years ago was a good team to bet on because people didn't really know them. They're a Midwest school and they were pretty good. They're not any good. Tulsa's not any good. And Navy is the best academy school out there. This is only 14 points. And both of the numbers that are out there, Kenny thinks it's 34-23, so 11, so not a big number there. And Bill Connolly thinks it's 35-22. But if I looked at my numbers when it comes to point margin, Navy is They're in the top group up here. Where are they go? They are 38th. So they're really good when it comes to yards and scoring. And when it comes to Tulsa, Tulsa's in the bottom. They are 114th. That's a big discrepancy there. And so those are the games I'm looking at. I really haven't pulled the actual trigger yet. I wanted to hear one more thing. Like before I actually bet, I like to hear the PFF guys talk about the matchups from the player perspectives, and that'll come out today. And when that comes out, I'll listen to what they have to say about certain matchups like this. I'm sure they'll do the Texas A&M and Notre Dame game. They'll probably do the Arkansas game too. So I want to hear what they have to say about some of those matchups because they get the game grades and different things on perspectives that I'm not looking at. I didn't pay for PFF this year, so once that stuff kind of comes out, I think I'll start betting. But those are my thoughts. That's kind of what I'm looking at, and hopefully that helps some people.
Tomorrow we will be docked here at ECSI. Wheels up at 7:05 from Logan. I'll be heading to Scotty's neck of the woods, Panama City Beach, for a food truck festival on Saturday. So if you're in the Florida area, Panama City Beach, Food Truck Festivals of America, we will be live there on Saturday. The rest of the week, I will wait for my marching orders on Wednesday to see if me and Scotty can get back here on Thursday and Friday. Myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one and only Mr. Scotty Webb at Webby20 MLB. We wish everyone a blessed day. Enjoy yourselves. Behave. Start looking at the market now, people. It's never too early. And stay tuned.